Hi, folks, welcome. Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Okay, this story popped up on my radar. I immediately scroll through it, go back, reread it, and I thought this is this is so true. It's somewhere where we as a society have fundamentally lost our way. By the way, welcome to the What's Right show, your place for common sense conservatism, Monday through Friday here on the What's Right Media Network. Sam at what'srightshow.com is my email, at What's Right Sam on X, formerly known as Twitter. And as I'm doing the program here these last week and going into next week from my home in the Czech Republic, I'll be back in Las Vegas later next week. But I'm posting pictures from where I'm at, and if you're curious about that at all, go to my Instagram. That also is at What's Right Sam for some of that more non-political background color. Now, the article here, this is a Family Studies, Institute of Family Studies, talking about how hard parenting is. Now, many of you have had kids. Maybe some of you now have grandkids. But certainly all of us have been parented, right? Presumably. And we know we've sort of, by definition have parents. Whether they parent you or not is a separate matter. And, some of you are new here to the program. So let me explain very briefly my thinking on this. So we have 3 kids. Now they're 18, 15, and 13. So now I got all teenagers as of last week. And the one thing I can tell you is that I have always been, my wife and I have always been strict parents. We've always been firm with our kids, and a lot firmer, a lot tougher on our kids than pretty much all of their friends, contemporaries at school. Now we're loving and we're compassionate and we're caring, but it's tough love, and I had a lot of high expectations for how my kids would behave, not just in public but at home, how they would treat their siblings, and the respect that they would show me and my wife. And it was interesting. So the whole survey here, this article, Institute for Family Studies, goes through all these metrics of what is parenting perceived to be difficult by parents today. What are the factors that help parents, family support, things like that. And you get to the bottom of it here, almost as if it's an afterthought, but it's the most important part of the whole piece, which is this is it. Strict parenting. Stricter parenting is harder, but is associated with a better parent-child relationship. Now, mention my kids are teenagers. Let me share a quick story. So I'm on my way. I'm taking my daughter to school in Las Vegas, where we live, and I'm taking her to school, and she's being a brat. Now, if you've had teenagers, you know exactly what I'm talking about. She's just being bratty. Oh, don't talk to me, Dad. And I said, oh, okay. I said, you know what? I'll tell you what, you can be a brat as I take you next week to your new public school where you're going to be going to class, because I sure as heck am not paying for you to go to a beautiful private school that happens to be expensive. For you to just treat me like this in the car, it's not appropriate. I'm not going to take it. Silence. 2-3 minutes. We pull up to her school. Before she opens the door, gives me a hug. I love you, Dad. Gives me a kiss on my cheek. Have a great day. And was sweet as peaches from that day forward. And the point of this is, you can demand respect. You can be firm with your kids. You don't have to give them a cell phone right in day one. And I have been, and I'm sure you've seen this whether you have kids or not, out in public and in restaurants, and the kids are all on iPads. The kids are climbing over chairs. And the parents are saying, honey, don't do this. Honey, don't do this. And the astounding thing is that for generations before us, we were tough and consequential on kids. We did not allow, generally speaking, bad behavior. But somewhere along the way, some people, some smart people with PhDs began telling us that soft parenting, not raising your voice, not telling children no, was the way forward. And I kind of stepped back from this a little bit as we were chatting about this with Robbie here in the studio. It's a lot of ways real conservatism, the textbook kind of conservatism, because it's not all of it's not political, right? It's a way of thinking, is valuing what we know already instead of giving into every fad. And so I'm going to get into a whole conversation about this, transgender ideology stuff, but obviously a significant portion of the country got taken by a fad. And it is true, and to hugely damaging, eternally damaging consequences, in my opinion. I just think it's a shame that our country is going to carry forever what we did to these kids. But even something as basic as to how to raise kids, leftists have managed to pervert that. And one of the things that's, I understand that, if you're a revolutionary and if you're a progressive, right, by definition, you're always looking for the next best thing. But sometimes the things that your grandparents did or your great-grandparents did were the right ways of doing things. Now this is a point I wanted to make it, and I'll tell you the other thing that I think is hugely damaging, and I say this as a technology-forward guy. I think it's important to teach kids to use tech, and it will be more and more important to do that as we become, unfortunately, I think, but inevitably, a more tech-forward society. So all that said, giving kids screens early is the nuttiest thing on the planet. It's so bad. And by the way, have you've been following this unfolding news development out of Los Angeles? You see this, the FBI yesterday raided the Los Angeles Unified School District office. And then they executed a search warrant in the home affiliated with the superintendent of the school. And this is wild stuff. Now, Los Angeles Unified School District, just if I can remind you of this, I think spends the most of any large school district per child in America, and they have some of the worst results. So the LA Unified School District is an example of a district that's just fundamentally failed, and it also, by the way, I think serves as a cautionary example, a tale of where throwing more money at education does not always equal better results. In fact, oftentimes quite the opposite. But when you dig into what this is all about, and there's, obviously details aren't coming out about what this investigation is into. Apparently, there was some sort of AI company that was providing had a contract with the district, millions of dollars, and they were going to create a chat bot to help kids learn. The chat bot, the name of it was Ed. Okay, it was a student support little AI program. And apparently the whole thing was a fraud. The founder of the company, Joanna Smith Griffin, was arrested November a year ago, so back in 2024. So this investigation clearly started well before Trump got into office. And so now I'm not saying there's a kickback, but almost every ironically, right? you send your kids to school, and you want them to learn something. You want them to read a book. You want them to learn how to be able to sit still for 2 minutes. And instead of doing it, a lot of these districts will hand them these iPads and make them do everything on their iPads. It's a problem here in Vegas. A lot of schools are doing it here too. And it just at a time where learning how to process information carefully and whatnot out the window. And at the same time, I'm telling you, this will not be the first or last superintendent that gets caught getting kickbacks for this tech. It is such a scam, top to bottom. So just an interesting side note. But even here in Europe, I'm here right now. Even here in Europe, where you traditionally think of it being a place where more traditional child rearing methods are used. There's been a huge push to soft parent. There's been a huge push to do it. And talk to any teacher who has been teaching kids for 30 years. My mother-in-law in Utah, high school teacher, recently retired, spent decades in the classroom. In Utah, right? We're not talking, it's not in the inner city. It's a nice, middle class, upper middle class area. The kids are impossibly out of control. 20 years ago, if you told a high school student, we're going to have to sit down with your parents, the mood changed. You sat that kid down and said, hey, we're going to talk to your parents. If you don't cut this out, we're going to do it. Yes. Okay. Let's not do that today. Well, she hasn't taught for a couple years now, but I mean, yeah, but today it got to the point where you'd say, yeah, I'm going to talk to your parents if you keep this up. And the kid would go, oh, so what? So what? I don't care. If you have young kids, if you are thinking about having kids, if you want to be a parent with a successful family, I'm going to tell you this because everybody, and producer Robbie, you can back this up. My kids from a very early age knew how to go to a restaurant, order, say their pleases and thank yous, be respectful to teachers, be respectful to kids. Okay, I'm not saying they're perfect. I'm just saying the fundamentals of life. They've always been this way. And I'll tell you what the secret is. The secret is you just need to expect that behavior from them. That's the trick. There are a lot of people that will tell you that you can't expect too much from your children. That it's, they've got their wiggles, or they've got this problem or that problem, this excuse or that excuse. They've got, ADHD. They've got, it is that entire movement. And it started, I was just in the 90s as I'm going through high school, it was just starting. Where little Johnny couldn't help himself because he had a condition. Now the condition was called being a boy, okay? An active boy, even an active girl maybe, being an active kid who, instead of going out and playing sports and climbing trees, was at home in a room playing video games. And this actually is now backed up in this article, this study that got released. This Hard Parenting, Better Relationships, Institute of Family Studies. Okay, look, they talked to 24,000 parents. What I'm telling you here, I'm not making it up. I'm sharing my own experiences, but it's I mean, this what they said, the one family rule, this is what the study found. One family rule that turned out to have a hugely positive effect on relationship quality was kicking the kids outside for a time each day. Go outside and play. Go to the park. Go run around. Ride your bike. Hang out. Now, I know what happened in the 80s, right? It wasn't just video games. You can't just blame the video games. You've also got to blame the milk carton. It's a milk carton problem. Anytime. What do I mean? Well, you'd be sitting there, and this started, I think, in the 80s, because there was a series of high-profile child kidnappings. I mean, I grew up in the shadow of the Polly Klaas case. And you'd be sitting there at breakfast, just feeling great about yourself, and you'd look at the milk carton, and there's some poor kid that's missing. And you imagine he's been hacked to pieces. Now, I'm looking at it as a kid at the time going, I hope I don't get kidnapped, and I hope I don't get hacked to pieces. But now, as a parent, I know how my parents were looking at that. My parents and your parents, all of our parents were looking at that milk carton going, I hope my kid doesn't get, and it's maybe I can't let little Johnny go ride his bike wherever he wants because, that happened to that little boy last seen on his tricycle riding the neighborhood at dusk. And this impact of news coverage of prominent kidnappings made parents tighten the reins. And there were many parents that go, well, okay, the video games aren't great, but at least, Sam's not going to get kidnapped. That was a part of this. And folks, I don't know what to tell you other than your chances of your kid not developing properly by being stuck inside make him physically safe. But the chances of actual harm, depends hugely on where you live, but is a lot lower and is a small percentage of them going outside and getting hurt, falling off a tree, even breaking a leg, whatever. Kids are tough, but things will happen. I understand this. But it's almost guaranteed that if your child is cooped up at home, that they're just not going to develop the way they need to. And that's the reality. And the heartbreaking thing for parents, and I feel for you, those of you who are parents and those of you who are thinking about being parents, let me just say this. To those of you who are thinking about starting a family, there's nothing better. And by the way, if you are a good person, if you've got your head screwed on straight, if you're conservative, you get how things work, you're going to be a great parent. And the world needs more kids like the ones you're going to have. The world, America in particular, we need families like yours. Mark my words. So just keep that in mind. And you're just gonna have to accept that there's with risk, with risk of them going somewhere, doing something. There's also great reward. And I'll close with this. Both of our older kids have spent a year. Daniel did in the 7th grade year, and Vera did it in her 8th. Sent them out for a year to Europe, and they would stay with family, or in one case family, in another case friends, and go to school and be away from home for a year. And they would learn another language and independence. And it was, for us as parents, was nerve-wracking, absolutely nerve-wracking, imagining all the things that could go wrong. But nothing went wrong, knock on wood. Hopefully for my youngest, who's going to go next year, won't go wrong for her either. And the upside was they came back mature, more independent, stronger, greater self-confidence, right? So sometimes the things where you have to let go a little bit prove to have the best return on investment in parenting. So things to keep in mind. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Media Network, the What's Right Show, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. I'll be right back.
The Sam and Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Friends, just a quick word, permit me, about Sam and Ash Injury Law. If there's anything I want to get through to you on, it's that when you have an accident, auto accident, some kind of premises liability, whatever it is that happens, and you're going, okay, I gotta get this claim. I've got bills, I've got property damage, I've got some medical bills. I'm gonna do it all on my own. I'm gonna handle it on my own. Don't be that guy. Don't be that gal. You're just going to get taken for a ride by the insurance company. They will take advantage of it. They'll take advantage of you. And in the end, you'll end up thousands of dollars upside down and in a world of hurt. Now, by the way, if you get to that point, still call for help. It's never too late. But the sooner you get Sam and Ash Injury on your side, but the sooner you get Sam and Ash Injury Law on your side, the better. 800-304-2000. 800-304-2000. That's the number, samandashlaw.com. No recovery, no fee, no money up front. Easy. A quick phone call, and then you don't have to worry about it. Just turn your case over to the firm. samandashlaw.com, because you deserve what's right. All right, folks, more reactions on the Trump State of the Union speech being described as one of the best State of the Union speeches in our modern era. And I'll tell you, one of the things that people have said about it that I've heard from even less political people is that it was entertaining. People thought he was funny. People thought he was charming. I've listened to people, I've talked to people that have said, I thought he was a kind of a dark, mean guy. It was great. Is that what Trump is like? And one thing, right? I mean, look, you go back a year, and what was the State of the Union speech a year ago like? I remember we were talking about Greenland, talking about a lot of, this is what we're going to do. We're going to, it was a dark speech described by many that way. And the speech this time around, I think radically different. I do. And, I don't know. I think that most people obviously didn't sit down and watch, what it was, an hour, 40, hour, 50 minutes of Trump speaking. But pretty much everybody who is somewhat keeping tabs on politics is aware that the reaction to the speech is positive. Now, people are, it's not you, it's not me, I get this, but a lot of people out there are hugely susceptible to the influence of others. If they feel that the conventional consensus sort of, conclusion on Trump, acceptable conclusion is that he's a terrible person. They'll think he's a terrible person too, because they're followers and they haven't taken the time to, to deep dive on it. And they don't have the bravery. Many people don't have the bravery to buck whatever the trend is. Okay. So, but when you see, what was it? The CBS News poll, 74%, CBS News, 74% loved the speech. And then you start to see this comedy, almost comedy stuff happen, where you see the New York Times a fact check on Trump. Trump had, the hockey players, the U.S. Gold medal hockey team, and they went through Trump's claims. And one of the claims that Trump made in the speech is that this is what they put up in the New York Times fact check. They go, they would give Trump quotes of things that he said, and then they would rate them true or false. I've never seen a goaltender play as well as goalie Connor Hellebuck. Think about it, 60 shots, 46 shots on goal. So one of the statements that the New York Times puts up that Trump made during the speech is this one. Quote, I've never seen a goaltender play as well as goalie Connor Hellebuck. Think about it. 46 shots on goal. And they ranked it as exaggerated. They said it was exaggerated. This is great. Okay, so, okay, it was, I guess he blocked, 41 out of 46 of the shots on goal, which is enormous. If you follow hockey, that is great. That is a great block rate. You're a goalie, and that's what you're doing. The guy was spectacular. And this is what they decide to fact check? Was it 2 years ago, during Biden's last State of the Union speech, he confused Lincoln Riley, okay, with USC coach Lincoln Riley. Remember that? He got muddled up the name completely. And and everybody, the New York Times stepped all over themselves to carry water for Biden, who at the time, of course, was running for re-election. So, look, to me, this is the takeaway obviously is that Trump is so successful with the speech that this is what they're nitpicking. They went through Trump's crime is down number. I saw a number of mainstream media outlets rate that as true. They had to admit that what Donald Trump said about crime coming down is true. And by the way, it's certainly lost a little in the weeds for people because, the two things that Trump really has done to influence crime is remove criminal aliens from the states, right? Just to pick them up, wrap them up, send them off somewhere, detain them, whatever it is. Criminal illegal aliens, getting them off the street. Tom Homan, every time he gives an interview, says this is what we're prioritizing. So that's one thing. And then, of course, there were the prominent, deployals. Then there, of course, were the prominent, and then, of course, you had the National Guard deployments that were, that everybody was in the media was screaming about. So I wonder if that connection will be made. But the point is, again, the speech was tremendously, wildly successful. And, I get people in the media. This was an interesting thing, too. A lot of them are going, hey, that moment where Trump called on Democrats to stand in support for politicians, for the government, putting American citizens ahead of illegal immigrants, that it was a gamble, that what if it hadn't paid off? What if they had stood and it would have been a moment? And first of all, the media is still lost on the Democrats. They still don't understand how fundamentally broken this Democratic Party is. And number two, it was all upside for Trump. What if they had stood? Because I don't believe that would have been, it was better that they didn't and showed their true colors, but what if the Dems had just decided to stand up? Well, they would be signaling their support of Trump administration policies, which would have absolutely wrecked them with their base. By the way, that's why they couldn't stand. Trump knows these people. He's playing them like a fiddle. He knew they couldn't stand, because if you were to stand but Renee Good, but Alex Preddy, but and the activists in the Democratic Party, the far left crazies, who are way crazier than anyone in the base in the Republican Party as a whole. Let me tell you, their base is wild. They're full on raving lunatic communists. And I'm not saying every one of your friends who's a Democrat, neighbor who's a Democrat, is like that. That's the lunatic base of the party. I mean, look. I mean, what do you have on the Republican side? What's the base of the Republican Party? We want a border. We want illegals out of the country. We want to bring back jobs and manufacturing. We want to lower taxes. Right? Radical positions. So this is and there's so much winning here. And amidst all of this, the FBI goes and kicks out, I think it was 7 agents or 8. There's 10 Mar-a-Lago staffers, FBI staffers who worked on the documents case. They got booted. But also there were 7 or so that worked on the spying on the senators and congressmen, that spied on people even like Susie Wiles and Trump's lawyers. There are people who went to the FISA court in D.C. and got these ridiculous warrants and then ended up spying on members of Congress and didn't tell them. And so for the first time, you're starting to see, I know you guys all want, I get it. I do too. I want to see these people prosecuted and in prison, but it's coming. Now they're getting, if discovered what was going on, they've got them dead to rights. They've clearly got enough evidence to fire them from a government job, and presumably indictments can follow. There's an order of operations to this. That's right. Well, so Kash Patel, when he was a private citizen, he was caught up in this too. Kash Patel, who's now the director of the FBI, had his phone spied on by Biden's Department of Justice. And it's wild. And by the way, amidst all of this, there's some data out there for the Democrats that isn't good. Do you see this on CNN the other day? So the numbers are tightening on the Democrat side, but not in a good way. They're starting to even out. There is no clear front runner on the Democratic side going into 2028. Now, I know we're still talking about the midterms, but who is the leader of the Democratic Party? Is it Ilhan Omar, who has spent much of last night or the other night shouting at Trump during the State of the Union speech? Is it Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? Is it Gavin Newsom? Gavin Newsom is not doing as well as we'd hope. And Enton here breaks it down. He calls it an absolute clown car. Listen to this.
This is just a downright clown car at this point on the Democratic side. I mean, just take a look here. Top choices for the 2028 Dem-Pres nominee. You have a leader, but it's not really a clear leader. It's within the margin of error. You have Newsom at 19%. Then you have former Vice President Kamala Harris at 18%. Quite a weak number for her, given that, of course, she was the nominee last time around. Pete Buttigieg, who, of course, has run before, 13%. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez at 12%. This is just a total clown car. It is a total mess. There is no clear front runner at this particular point on the Democratic side. Who the heck knows who the nominee is going to be in 2 years?
This is wild. Remember, we talked a little bit about this last week, and the numbers were much better, actually, for Kamala back then. So things are moving around. But, one of my takeaways on this is Gavin Newsom has gone out there and overexposed himself. Now, I don't mean this in a San Francisco kind of way, folks. You just bear with me here. He's politically overexposed himself. He launched that new press office account where he's got people running it and were aggressively tweeting in a Trump style. But I told you at the time that it was going to backfire. But they've been doing that. What else is going on? He's flying to every conference, popping up everywhere. He is like the man that is everywhere all the time, in your face. And is it moving the needle for him? Not as much as one would expect. And why is this relevant now? Well, I think because the Democrats are yearning and thirsting for a counter program to Trump. I think they would love to have their Trump slayer. You know how fast the Democrats would rally around someone who they perceived, whether it's real or not, they perceived could well, I think they would want literally, but metaphorically punch Trump and land punches on Trump at the very least. They're dying for this. But they can't make it happen. There's nobody that can do it. And it doesn't help. Number one, the problem is that it's a tough sell to sell the Democratic position right now on these things. It's a non-starter. But the other thing is that these people are all lightweights. What was Newsom's pitch over the weekend? It's, I'm just as dumb as all of you, to a room full of African Americans. That was what he said. And look, let's forget the obviously the completely racist implications of that. He admitted on national television that he's a perfectly average moron. And I still don't think we should underestimate him. I'm not of that mind at all. And if you've listened to me, I've consistently told you I believe, if everything was to happen today, he would be the nominee. And by the way, look at it. I mean, he is the front runner. My comment here is that he just doesn't have it to be that clear front runner at this stage when everybody in the Democratic Party is yearning for that. And so it is a giant mess. It's a puddle of disaster. And right now, the hill that they're going to die on, I'm telling you, they got to crush voter ID. And Schumer, it's gotten so bad that Schumer just came out, late yesterday, came out and did an interview, and he said the quiet part out loud. He said the A word. This is what they want. They want mass amnesty. Listen to this lying schmuck talk about what he really wants to see happen. He wants to go back to the Gang of Eight and start doing amnesties for all.
What would an immigration deal look like between Republicans and Democrats in the Senate?
Well, we had a good model in 2013, as you may remember, bipartisan. John McCain and I headed the Gang of Eight. We had 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, including Marco Rubio, who's now gone to the other side on this. But we could come up with a bill like that. It toughens up the border. It gives a path to citizenship, a long, tough path to citizenship for 11 million people who are here. It allows high-tech people who are needed in our industries to come in. But it was a bill that got 70 votes in the Senate, or 68 or 69. It got Democrats and Republicans. That's the way to go.
Bring back John McCain. You tell me, please, for the love of everything that's good, what Republican today, what average Republican voter wants this back? And by the way, Chuck, thanks but no thanks. The border already is secure. Trump demonstrated that all it needed was executive action. The most brilliant takeaway from Trump's first year in office, and why I think it was so important that he focus on this, because it really was the existential threat, he demonstrated, Trump showed that all you had to do was to will it to be closed, and the border would be closed. It would become secure. That's it. He didn't need legislation. He didn't need that. He didn't need to send a big pork bill with 40 million to Ukraine. He didn't need any of that. Trump showed he could just get it done using existing law and, of course, getting a little bit of funding for it, which he got in the big, beautiful bill, which many Republicans opposed. Well, in the Senate, and in the House, the usual suspects, the grandstanders. Okay. The point is the speech was a wild success, and they're still fighting this. And, if you think that there's some, it sounds good, 11 million people. Remember, this is the guy that says that your wife is too dumb to change her birth certificate and get her birth certificate to get a name change. Okay? So we have really not a lot of interest in what Chuck Schumer says. It's all lies. It would be mass amnesty for tens of millions of illegal immigrants just to save the Democratic Party. Ain't gonna happen. All right, folks, have a good day. Great to be with you as always here on the What's Right Media Network. The show brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, the only law firm to trust for your injury case. Click to subscribe, get the podcast so you get the show right in the morning. You don't have to wait till 6 o'clock if you're listening on the radio. Easy, all right? What's Right Show, wherever you get your podcast. I'll see you tomorrow.